I'm very conscious, really, that a lot of you have heard the stewardship presentation before. This isn't the first time, I'm sure, for the vast majority of you in the congregation. And I'm also very much aware of the very long history of stewardship that we've got here at All Saints. So it's always good, isn't it, to kind of just think about stewardship from a particular angle. And the angle this year is the joy of giving. And that picks up very much the last phrase that Lee used in the letter to all of us, which is, the Lord loves a cheerful giver. I wonder if you kind of know where that comes from. We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. Highly appropriate for a Christian stewardship campaign, but it's not a biblical quote. It comes from Churchill. Now, what would we like to do in this presentation? We actually want to do two things. Firstly, we want to share with you the facts and figures which make up our mission here at All Saints Oakham. And I put it that way because I want to emphasise that this isn't a matter just of balancing the books. If you read the booklet that comes with the APCM, the annual meeting, you'll realise how much there is that goes on in All Saints in terms of ministry, in terms of teaching, in terms of discipling and fellowship and caring. And we want to be able to share the life we have in God in this town and in our lives. So I want to share the facts and figures about where we are as a church. But secondly, we also want to present a challenge to you about what it is to be a steward, a Christian steward, and a disciple. So I'm just going to pass over to Peter to talk through the figures.
To enable us to do this exercise, we've drawn up an early budget for next year. And I'd like to take you through that, not line by line, you'll be pleased to know. All the numbers you need are in the booklet that you'll find in your envelopes. But I'll take you through the key elements of next year's budget. First of all, our parish share. It'll stand at £1,827 per week. Quite a sizable amount. The parish share looks after expenditure for our vicar, our curates, training, their pensions, their housing, and so on. Very important to them, of course. Our building running costs work out at about £436 a week. Those costs involve utilities, gas and electricity, insurance. Insurance comes out, by the way, at £141 per week. Furnishings and maintenance work, all of that goes under this general heading of building running costs. Worship and ministry expenses. Again, quite a sizable amount. That covers team expenses, the organ and choir, altar requisites, other worship, all the work that we do with our children, baptisms, and also the cost of stewardship. Mission giving. As you all know, I'm sure, we give each year 10% of our planned giving, 10% of that goes to mission giving. And administration costs. Administration costs include salaries, photocopying, our cleaning materials, toilet rolls, anything that might go into that office, that all comes under those administration costs. And the general total is about just over £3,000 per week. Quite a sizable amount. For those of you who like pipe charts, this will give you some indication of how much of that really is administration, parish share and building costs. Just about 3/4, I think, of the total cost there. So how do we match up to that? How much are we already giving towards that amount? Let's have a look at what we're doing this year. First of all, our direct and planned giving, £1,673 per week. That's the envelope system and direct payments via the diocese. On that giving, we are able to claim tax of £433 per week. Weekly collections, those that we have in the collection trays, also the alms boxes, any donations of that sort, one-off donations, they will all go into those weekly collections. Weddings and funeral fees. Quite a sizable amount, isn't it? £135 a week. And we've had a lot of funerals these last 2 years. as I'm sure the retired clergy will also know. They've been helping out. And hire of premises, that's the church and the church hall, brings us in £58 per week. And finally, grants and fundraising, another £60 per week, making a grand total of £2,754 per week. The sharp-eyed amongst you will know, therefore, that there is a shortfall. And that shortfall can be seen by this dark brown figure here, £364 per week. How do we fill that gap? David's going to tell you how.
Well, thank you, Peter, for the facts and figures. But as always, a stewardship campaign gives us an opportunity to review our own personal response to God's generosity. It is, in fact, an amazing joy and privilege to be stewards of God's gifts to us. A steward was a very kind of important role in any household in Jesus' day. And it means, effectively, that God has given us a starring role in the creation that he's made us a part of. And he encourages and wants us to be good stewards, careful and responsible. And I think one of the things that we recognize about the God we worship is that God is a generous God. It's not that he's provided a make-do world. You know, he's provided a world of great beauty and joy. He is a generous God and generously loves us all of the time, constantly giving of himself. He gives us the world. God so loved the world. And we sometimes think that that only refers to us as individuals and you're not a person. But actually, God loves the whole of creation and gave his son for that. God loves us that he gives us time. It's great, isn't it? That's one area where every human being has equality. We all have exactly the same number of hours in the day. But we've got the moment to enjoy God's creation. He gives us talents and skills. We can make a difference in his world. And he gives us treasure to enable us to share the wealth of his gifts. But above all, he gives us grace and mercy. And I just liked those definitions of grace and mercy. Grace is when you get the good things you don't deserve. Mercy is when you don't get the bad things you do deserve. And God is generous with both. We believe in a generous God. So, what I would say and what others have said before me, is actually Christian stewardship isn't about giving, it's about using. It's about how we respond to the gifts that God has generously given us. And importantly, it's actually about every part of our lives, which is why stewardship is always challenging. But truth is, if you receive a gift, you say thank you. How do we say thank you to God? Do we do it reluctantly, grudgingly, mechanically? Or do we do it with generosity and a joyful heart? Let me at this stage say that we recognize that stewardship as discipleship is a journey. And we're all at different stages on the journey. That's fine, that's the way it is. But I think the destination is well summed up in a quote from a report by John Truscott in 2004, where he said, a Christian disciple is aiming for the place where they can say, my Christian calling is to be Christ-like. And so, naturally, I give joyfully and sacrificially, following Christ. Those are the keynote words, aren't they, that you've heard across all stewardship campaigns, that giving should be sacrificial, cheerful, proportionate. In other words, the more you have, the more you give, and regular. And in a way, that means every day of the week, every minute of the day, not just about when you're in church on a Sunday. So, that's the challenge for us in this stewardship campaign. How generous are you? How generous are we? How generous are we with our time, with our talents, and with our treasure? How generous are we in caring for God's world? How generous are we in sharing the good news of the amazing love and generosity of God? That's a question for us all to think about and pray about, and there's a prayer on the back of the booklet. Perhaps it might be helpful, at least with the financial side, to be able to have a look at some benchmarks. There's been some work done on the diocesan average giving level, and that is around 3.2%, or the equivalent of £10.55 a week. Interestingly, if the diocese was to hit the recommended Church of England benchmark of 5%, then that would go up to £16 a week, and it doesn't take a mathematical genius to work out that the tithing principle would double that to £32 a week. How are we here at All Saints? Well, we're just a touch above the diocesan average at £10.86, but hey, this is Oakham, this is Rutland. You would expect it to be a touch higher than the diocesan average. And if we were to have a look at the current spread of giving, well, you'll know where you are in that particular, which bar you're in on that particular chart, because I suspect the vast majority here are already involved in stewardship. Would be great, Peter, wouldn't it, if everybody touched up a bar? So, what next? Well, at the back of church this morning, you'll find a pack with your name on it. It will have a brochure which will include all of the facts and figures that we've given this morning, and also some kind of theological thoughts for you to ponder on and reflect on, and a prayer. It's very much a subject for prayer. When you've read those and had time to think about it, there's a response form, and we'd invite you to return that response form. There's an envelope addressed to Gordon Woods there, who holds the ring on covenants, and we'd ask that you bring that back to us before the 29th, or by the 29th of October. From next week, there will be a box at the back of church where you can just put your envelope in. I think we worship in a lovely place, and we experience the generosity of God. We're in a great place to respond to it. Thank you very much indeed.
Just finish by saying that, there's good reasons why the clergy don't do the presentation. For several reasons. Firstly, it's really important that the lay people take the responsibility of the financing of the parish. Secondly, your giving is entirely confidential. I have no idea who gives what, and that allows me to minister freely to everyone on the same basis. I have no idea whose giving is what. And the final thing is that some clergy, not so much me, but some clergy are very embarrassed about singing for their own supper, because at the end of the day, most of the funds go towards the payment of stipend and housing for the clergy. Well, I find myself in an unusual situation, because this is 2018 and I will have gone soon into that year, so I'm not really worried about singing for my own supper. But I am very, very determined to leave this parish in a strong financial place for the recruitment of a new parish priest. And I think this leaflet, which you have in your pack, when read together with the annual reports, are some of the two most important documents in the recruitment of a new incumbent for this parish, because they show a parish that's doing a lot and is taking seriously how they resource their work. And the truth is that there's nothing worse, the retired clergy will know, there is nothing worse than being an incumbent of a parish where you stay awake at night worrying about the finances. That is a terrible burden that allows you not to preach and to minister to your people. So I really encourage you, those who are already giving and those who are not, to respond appropriately to this stewardship campaign, because that will place you in the best place in order to resource your life for the next 3 years.